The pattern always begins the same way, not with armies, not with explosions, but with a quiet shiver that runs through an empire long before anyone admits something is wrong. Picture three superpowers: Spain, Britain, the Soviet Union, each convinced they were permanent, each sitting on unimaginable wealth, each certain the world would bend to their will forever. And yet, all three collapsed, not over centuries, but in a series of rapid breaks that followed the same 7-stage script. What should unsettle you is this: in 2025, the United States has already crossed 5 of those 7 stages. Not drifting toward them, not flirting with them, already inside them, living them, while most Americans are trying to explain away the rising rent, the shrinking paycheck, the unstable job market, the feeling that every year since 2020 has been a little harder than the last. People sense the shift, even if they don't know the vocabulary for it. Groceries feel heavier on the wallet. Interest rates feel like punishment. Savings feel thinner. Housing feels like a contest rigged from the start. Your parents bought stability with one income. Today, 2 incomes barely buy breathing room. None of that is random. It's what early-stage imperial decline feels like on the ground: subtle, slow, then suddenly overwhelming. Because once an empire believes it's exceptional, it stops seeing the cracks forming under its feet. Spain thought endless silver made them invincible until bankruptcy came 4 times and for decades. Britain ruled a quarter of Earth until 2 wars, and a broken currency stripped it down to an island with fading memories. The Soviet Union built tanks, missiles, and a nuclear empire, but none of it mattered when the economy beneath it rotted away. 3 collapses, 3 patterns, same sequence, same ending. And the United States, whether anyone wants to say it out loud or not, is marching along that same path, almost step for step. If you want to understand where America is headed, not politically, not emotionally, but mathematically, you have to understand the pattern. Not the headlines, not the talking points, the pattern. Because history doesn't repeat in detail, it repeats in structure. And once you see that structure, you can't unsee it. You'll understand why groceries cost more, why your rent jumps every year, why mortgage rates are suffocating, why companies keep cutting staff, why your savings lose value even when you do everything right. So before we dive into the 7 stages, before we map them onto today's America, we need to go back inside the lives of the empires that fell before us to see how collapse actually feels from the inside. What it looks like when the decline turns from invisible to undeniable, and why every nation thinks it's different, right until the moment it isn't. Every collapse begins with confidence. That's the dangerous part. At the height of their power, every empire believes the rules of history have expired, that their wealth, their currency, their military strength, their global prestige will somehow suspend the laws of economics. But beneath that illusion lies a rigid, repeatable structure, a 7-stage cycle that has ended every superpower of the last 500 years. It always opens with overextension, the irresistible temptation to expand influence, commitments, and military reach far beyond what the underlying economy can sustain. Spain fought on 4 continents at once. Britain policed half the planet. The USSR matched the U.S., tank for tank, missile for missile, base for base. Each one believed they had no choice but to defend every frontier, until the cost hollowed them out. Then comes currency debasement, the most predictable move in imperial history. Spain mixed copper into silver. Britain printed unbacked pounds to survive 2 world wars. The Soviet ruble was a currency in name only. And every time, leaders insisted it was temporary, manageable, harmless. Right up until prices exploded and trust evaporated. Once you break the currency, you fall into the debt spiral, the third stage. Because debts must rise faster to cover the shrinking value of money. Spain defaulted 4 times. Britain borrowed until the pound collapsed. The USSR borrowed strength from oil prices, and when oil fell, the entire budget imploded. Debt is the middle point of the pattern, the part where an empire still looks strong from the outside, but inside the walls are cracking. Stage 4 is loss of productive capacity. It's subtle at first. A nation stops making the things it used to make. Factories close. Innovation slows. Imports fill the shelves. Talent leaves. Everything still, it's fine, but the real engine of prosperity, production, is dying quietly in the background. Stage 5 is social decay, the phase people feel the most. Rising distrust. Rising crime. Institutions losing credibility. A political class that argues loudly but fixes nothing. Families struggling. Communities fracturing. A generation looking for an exit. Spain faced it. Britain faced it. The USSR drowned in it. And every time, leaders told citizens the same soothing lie. We're strong. We're stable. Keep calm. But here's the twist, the part the news never explains. These 5 stages don't destroy an empire. They only prepare it for destruction. The real collapse begins at stage 6, the loss of reserve currency status. It's the moment the world quietly stops trusting your money. Trade partners diversify. Allies hedge. Banks shift reserves. Oil contracts change denomination. And once that confidence breaks, the floodgates open. The currency comes rushing home. Inflation surges. Debt costs explode. And the empire loses the financial superpower advantage that held everything together. And finally, stage 7. Sudden collapse. Not gradual decline. Not slow fading. Sudden. Violent. Fast. Spain slipped from superpower to spectator within a lifetime. Britain lost its empire in a single generation. The USSR evaporated in 900 days. This is the pattern, the spine, the skeleton, the script. Every empire walked through it. Everyone believed it was different. And today, America has already completed the first 5 steps. To see just how precise this pattern really is, we need to go back into Spain's silver empire, Britain's global dominion, and the USSR's military machine to watch how the pattern played out in real time, for real people, in real lives. Long before the collapse became headline news. They called it the Golden Century, Spain's moment of triumph. But standing inside that world, you'd feel something very different. You'd see ships arriving with mountains of silver, tons of gold, wealth on a scale Europe had never imagined. You'd hear nobles boasting that Spain was chosen by destiny, favored by God, protected by oceans of treasure. And yet, behind the glitter, the rot had already begun. When Spain conquered the Americas, they unlocked the richest mines ever discovered. Potos alone produced enough silver to reshape the global economy. By 1600, half the world's silver was flowing through Spanish ports. Their currency became the global reserve, accepted everywhere. Their kings believed this made them untouchable. But easy money is the most seductive poison in history. It kills effort. It kills innovation. It kills discipline. Spain fought war after war. The Ottomans, the French, the Dutch, the English, convinced victory was their birthright. But sustaining an empire across 4 continents drained the treasury faster than silver ships could fill it. So they took the shortcut every empire takes. They diluted the currency. Pure silver coins became half silver, then a quarter, then barely any at all. Merchants rejected them. Prices surged. Spain defaulted not once, but 4 times in 40 years. People think collapse comes from defeat. It rarely does. It comes from exhaustion. It comes when the engine that built prosperity goes silent. Spain stopped making things, stopped building, stopped producing. Why work when you can import everything with silver? Why innovate when gold will pay the bill? So the gold left, the silver left, and eventually, the power left too. By the mid-1600s, Spain was a fading memory, giant on a map, hollow in reality. 3 centuries later, Britain stepped into the same story. They ruled the oceans, the trade routes, the colonies. The pound sterling sat at the center of global finance. London was the capital of money itself. But beneath the surface, the pattern was already taking shape. World War cracked the foundation. Britain spent more than it could ever repay. Gold reserves drained. Industrial capacity shattered. After the war, they tried to pretend nothing had changed. They returned to the gold standard at the old rate, overvaluing the pound and suffocating their own economy. Unemployment rose. Factories slowed. The currency collapsed in 1931. Then World War II delivered the final blow. Britain won the war, but lost the empire. By 1945, they owed more to the United States than their entire economy could produce. India, the jewel of the crown, was gone. Within a generation, the global empire dissolved into a handful of symbolic territories. The pound fell from the world's anchor to a regional token. The country that once dominated the globe became a passenger in America's new order. And then came the Soviet Union, a different ideology, different system, but the exact same pattern. A massive military, a top-down economy, a currency no one trusted. An elite convinced history would bend in their favor. But from the 1970s onward, the core was collapsing. Factories produced junk. Farms needed foreign grain. Oil kept them alive. Until prices fell. When the Berlin Wall dropped in 1989, the satellites that formed the Soviet strategic shield peeled away in months. And within 900 days, the entire superpower simply ceased to exist. No invasion, no foreign army, just economic gravity pulling a hollowed-out empire straight into the ground. 3 stories, 3 continents, 3 eras. And yet every fall sounds the same up close. Rising prices, shrinking trust, political excuses, elites insisting everything is fine, ordinary families feeling the pressure long before the headlines admit the truth. And now, as we turn back to modern America, the echoes grow louder, the parallels sharper, the consequences harder to ignore. Because the pattern is not abstract anymore. It's unfolding across the lives, debts, savings, and futures of millions of Americans in real time. Walk through any American city today, and you can feel it, that quiet tension in the air, the sense that something fundamental has shifted. People aren't imagining it. They're living inside stage 5 of the imperial pattern, the same phase that Spain, Britain, and the USSR reached right before everything accelerated. And when you lay the 7 stages beside the last 25 years of American life, the parallels stop being theoretical. They become personal. The first stage, overextension, is already baked into the system. More than 750 military bases, troops in 150 countries, multiple potential wars simmering at the same time, a defense budget larger than the next 10 nations combined, and somehow still stretched thin. This isn't strength. It's strain. It's a nation promising to defend every ally, every ocean, every frontier, while the economic engine underneath those promises slows down. That's exactly what Spain thought, exactly what Britain believed, exactly what the USSR gambled on. Then look at the currency. Since 1971, the dollar has been backed by nothing but trust, and trust is fragile. Over the last 2 decades, the money supply exploded more than 400%. Since 2020, trillions more poured into circulation. You feel it every time you open your grocery bill, every time rent renews, every time your paycheck buys a little less. It's not random inflation. It's stage 2 debasement playing out quietly, invisibly, through the loss of purchasing power in every wallet in the country. Next comes the debt spiral. $36 trillion owed. Soon 37. Interest payments approaching $1 trillion a year, more than the cost of defending the entire country. Think about that. America is borrowing money not to build roads or fund innovation, but to pay interest on money it has already borrowed. That's the same trap Spain fell into. The same trap Britain drowned in. The same trap the USSR never escaped. Stage 3 is already here. And then there's productive capacity, the industrial backbone that built the American middle class. It's been hollowed out, shipped overseas, outsourced, automated, and replaced with imports. The devices Americans rely on are made abroad. The medicine they need comes from foreign supply chains. Even the chips that power American defense systems are built in factories thousands of miles away. This is stage 4, the slow erosion of the real economy beneath the financial one. Spain lived it with silver. Britain lived it after 2 wars. The USSR lived it with farms that couldn't feed themselves. Today, America is living it through dependency. Stage 5 social decay is the hardest to talk about because it is the one people feel most deeply. Trust in institutions collapsing, cities struggling with crime, homelessness rising, drug overdoses wiping out more Americans year after year than any war the nation has fought. Political anger boiling over, everyone convinced the other side is the enemy. Families breaking under the pressure of rising costs and stagnant wages. It's not moral failure. It's what happens when economic stress reaches the breaking point. The same fracture Spain saw, Britain saw, the USSR saw. Decline starts in the numbers, but it hits hardest in the people. And now, early signs of stage 6 are appearing, the shift away from the dollar. For decades, every barrel of oil, every major trade contract, every global settlement relied on U.S. currency. But now, nations are hedging. BRICS countries are experimenting with alternatives. China and Russia trade in yuan and rubles. Saudi Arabia, the pillar of the petrodollar system, is accepting other currencies for oil. Central banks worldwide are buying gold at the fastest pace in modern history. This is how reserve currencies die, not suddenly, but gradually, then all at once. If that shift accelerates, Americans won't feel it in textbooks. They'll feel it in mortgage rates that don't come back down, in credit cards that get more expensive every month, in layoffs disguised as restructuring, 401ks bleeding from a currency shock. When the world stops needing dollars, those dollars come home flooding into the economy, raising prices, shrinking savings, crushing the middle class. Spain didn't see stage 6 coming. Britain denied it as long as they could. The USSR never understood it until it was too late. But today, the signals are visible for anyone who is willing to look past the headlines and connect the dots. The United States hasn't reached the final 2 stages, but the path ahead is starting to look eerily familiar. And if the pattern is as consistent as history suggests, the window for avoiding stage 6 and 7 is narrowing faster than most people realize. Every empire that reached this point told itself the same comforting story. We still have time. We still have options. We're too strong to fail. But history doesn't negotiate. It doesn't bargain. It doesn't bend because a nation feels exceptional. Once a superpower completes the first 5 stages, it stands at a crossroads with only 3 paths. And all of them reshape the lives of ordinary people long before the politicians feel the consequences. The first path is managed decline, the route Britain took after World War II. It's slow, it's painful, it's humiliating. An empire shrinks piece by piece, the currency weakens, global influence fades, and living standards fall quietly over a generation. Britain kept its pageantry, its traditions, its pride. But the economic reality was irreversible. For everyday families, it meant fewer opportunities, higher costs, a constant sense that each decade offered less than the one before. The second path is chaotic collapse, the route the Soviet Union followed, a sudden currency crisis, a political break, a financial system that snaps faster than leaders can react. Savings disappear, jobs vanish. Shelves empty. A superpower dissolves almost overnight. From the outside, it looks shocking. From the inside, people had felt the decay for years, they just didn't know how close they were to the edge. The third path is reset and reinvention, the most difficult of all. It means confronting the pattern head-on, reducing debt instead of expanding it, rebuilding industry instead of hollowing it out, tightening money instead of printing it, scaling back commitments instead of expanding them. It requires sacrifice, real sacrifice from elites, corporations, and government. And that's why almost no empire chooses it until it's too late. Which path America takes is still unwritten, but the pressure is building, and the pattern is tightening. The United States has the advantage of seeing the full script. Spain's silver addiction, Britain's debt paralysis, the USSR's economic rot. No other empire had that hindsight. But having the map only matters if a nation is willing to change direction. So far, the choices since 2020 suggest acceleration, not correction. More debt, more money printed, more commitments abroad, more fractures at home. That's why the next stage won't begin with explosions or dramatic headlines. It will begin quietly in bond markets, currency flows, commodity prices, and foreign contracts. The day America loses reserve currency status won't feel like a crash at first. It will feel like a tightening. Higher mortgage rates, pricier groceries, shrinking savings. Then a jolt. A debt crisis triggered by rising interest costs. Then a political storm as leaders scramble for answers. And when stage 7 hits, if it hits, it won't be gradual. The moment confidence breaks, the fall is fast. Spain lost its empire in a lifetime. Britain in a generation. The USSR in 900 days. Collapse is not the end of a nation, but the end of an era, the end of the assumptions people thought were permanent. But here's the part most people miss. Patterns aren't prophecies. They're warnings. They tell you where the road leads if you don't turn. Maybe America reforms. Maybe it rebuilds. Maybe it becomes the first superpower to break the sequence, to use history not as a tombstone, but as a guide. But hope alone won't change anything. Awareness will. Preparation will. Action will. If this opened your eyes to where we are in the 7-stage cycle, stay with this channel, because when stage 6 and 7 arrive, you won't want to be caught off guard. The clues aren't hiding in the future, they're etched in the past, and together, we'll follow them to understand what's coming and how to survive it.